Alright, so the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is add a new script to the server script service. And the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is add local group service equals game get service group service, because we'll be needing to use the group service for getting a player's groups later on. And then we're also going to want to get a function running whenever a player's character is added. So we're going to do game.players, the player service, player added event, connect that, function, player, and then player.character added, connect that with a function with the character parameter. And then once we've got that, what we can do is do while true do, and then add a little bit of a wait at the end. So now we've got right here, we can put some code here, and this will run and then wait 5 and then run and then wait 5, and then that's what we're going to be doing for constantly updating or checking what group or what group role a player is currently in. And normally I would normally set this to maybe like 15 or 20 seconds so it doesn't run too often, but for just testing and making it, we'll just set it to 5 for now. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is grab the players' groups. We can grab a table of all the groups a player is in by doing group service GetGroupsAsync, and then player.user ID. So we're grabbing the player here, we're using their user ID as the argument, and we're going to get the groups of that player. Then we're just going to go ahead and assign that to local groups. So now local groups equals whatever returns from this. Local in group equals false by default, and then we'll also do local group role. Next, we're going to go ahead and iterate through every single one of the groups the player is in, and we're going to search to see if they're in the group that we're looking for. So we'll do for key group in pairs groups, do if group dot ID is equal to, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the ID of the group that I'm looking for. So if I just go over to here, this is the group that I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and copy the ID. It's up at the top of the URL where you see roblox.com/groups/the ID/the name, and I'm going to go ahead and put that ID right there. So after I got that, I'm going to put then, and we'll set, if they have a group with that ID, then we'll set in group equal to true, and we'll also set group role, which is our variable right here. We'll set that to group.role. And as you can see, if I actually go ahead and pull up this page right here from the wiki, there's actually a bunch of different properties for each of the groups when you use GetGroupsAsync, and those are name, the group's name, ID, which we used right here, emblem URL, emblem ID, rank, role, which we're using role right here, group.role, and is primary and is in clan. So those are the properties of groups that you can access, but we're just using ID and role. ID to make sure that the player is actually in that group, and then getting the role. Break this for loop, because once you find that the player is in the group that you want, you no longer have to iterate through the rest of the groups. It's gonna iterate through each group the player is in. So it's gonna look at group 1. If the group ID is equal to that, then do this. If not, go on to the next group. then the next group, and the next group, and so on. And then once it finds the correct one, we just break, so it doesn't have to run for the rest of them. It's just a little bit of a optimization. Alright, so now that we've gotten all the information that we need, for example, in group, we've got the group role here. In group will either be false or true. It'll be false if we didn't find the group. It'll be true if we did. And group role will either be equal to nil, or it will be equal to that player's role. So that's all the information that we really need. I'm going to create a new function, and I'm going to call it right here before I make it UpdateTag. And the 3 parameters that we're going to send over is character. So that's up here, the character from up here. In group, so this variable right here that we set right here. And group role, which should end up being a string if it got assigned here, or nil if it never got assigned. And so this is me calling the function UpdateTag. I'm actually going to go ahead and go up and make the function right here. So we'll make function UpdateTag, and then we'll put the parameters character, in group, group role, like so. Alright, so this part's pretty simple. The first thing we're going to go ahead and do is make sure the character exists and the character has a head that we can use. Find first child head. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is do local role GUI equals character.head find first child role GUI. And this is going to go ahead and search the head if it already has a role GUI or not. And speaking of the role GUI, let's go ahead and make that right now. So I'm going to go out of the script real quick, and I'm just going to go ahead and set up a dummy to use using the rig builder. You can also go into the toolbox right here, where is it, toolbox, and search for a dummy or an NPC to use. I'm going to go ahead and do a mesh rig out of the R15. I'm just going to put that down. I'm going to delete the humanoid, and I'm going to delete everything in the head except for the mesh in the face. There we go. So I got something nice to work with. I'm going to go inside the head. I'm going to add a Billboard GUI. And then inside that Billboard GUI, I'm going to add a text label. I'm going to set the Billboard GUI's light influence to 0. So it's not the color isn't influenced by light at all. I'm going to set the max distance to 40 studs away so you can't see it past that. I'm going to go ahead and set the size to something scalar instead of by pixels. So instead of doing 0, 200, 0, 50, I'm going to do 4 studs wide, 0, 1, 0. So it looks like, so this blue box is my Billboard UI. Just ignore the label for now. I'm going to go ahead and set this stud offset to 0, 1.50, so it offsets to above the head. Let's go ahead and go into the text label. I'm going to set the text label size to 1, 0, 1, 0, so it fills up the entire Billboard UI that I made. Then I'm going to go ahead and set the background transparency to 1, so there's no background. I'm going to set the text scale to text. I'm going to put in some sample text. Let's do role label, like so. So it kind of looks like that. It disappears after 40 studs. I'm going to set the color to just something bright, like this bright pink. Gonna set some stroke, text stroke transparency to 0.5. So there's a little bit of, actually let's make that a little 0.2. There we go. So there's a little bit of black around the text. And I think that's it. Last thing I'm going to go ahead and do is just put that, rename this Billboard GUI to Roll GUI. And make sure you capitalize it the same way that you would put it in your script. And I'm going to just go ahead and put that into replicated storage. Or you can put it in server storage or lighting, whichever one you want to put it in. Just make sure you remember where you put it. Alright, so let's go back to the script. Now, this function, we're just making sure the character exists and making sure that we have a head to work with. And then we're going to go ahead inside that head and find a role GUI. This will either be equal to the role GUI itself, which is this Billboard GUI, or it will be set to nil. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and do two different things depending on if the player is in the group or not. So we're going to do if in group, then else something else. So we're going to do something if they are in a group and something else if they're not. So if they are in the group, we're going to do if not role GUI, then role GUI equals game.replicated storage .role GUI clone function, and then role GUI.parent equals character.head. So if they are in a group and the role GUI does not exist, meaning this was nil, then we're going to go ahead and copy a new one, clone a new one, and set its parent to the head. If the role GUI already exists, it will just ignore this part. And then moving on, it will go ahead and update the role GUI's text label. Now, depending on the way you made your Billboard GUI, if you decide to put a frame inside it, like a text label inside of a frame inside of the Billboard, you would put role GUI.frame.textLabel. Or if you put an image, you would, whatever you name this to, it would be different here. But if you just made it how I made it with role GUI text label, then you would just put role GUI text label. Role GUI.textlabel.text equals, and we're going to go ahead and use our group role from earlier, which is a string of the player's, the name of the role that they are in the group. So we're just going to go ahead and set that text to that. Now in this else, if they're not in the group, then we're going to do if role GUI, then, so role GUI was set to whatever it found in the head. If it does exist, we're going to go ahead and destroy it. So role GUI :destroy function. And if there is no role GUI in there, then we have nothing to worry about. So it'll just ignore this. Alright, I believe that is it for this part. There's a few more things we need to do, but this is enough to get it working. So if I go ahead and hit play. Alright, as you can see, we have a role above my head right now as I'm playing the game. However, there is one more thing that we need to do, and that is spawn a new thread for each player. And the reason why that is because when you do while true do, this code will actually run over and over and over, but it will only run for this character. If a new character is added to the game or a new player joins, this code actually won't be able to catch up with the second player because it'll be still stuck on this while true do loop for the first player. So in order to separate this code into separate threads, is what we call it, separate threads for each player, we need to just wrap this in a spawned function. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is do spawn function, actually spawn with the opening parentheses, function, go down here, I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses for spawn, and then I'm going to go ahead and put this all in a indented one tab. And then I also have to put another end right before that parentheses. This end is for the function, and this end is for the while true do, and this parentheses is for this parentheses right here. Alright, so now that we've got it working, so we made the role GUI for one player, then we use the spawn function to allow it to work for multiple players, and that's really all there is to it. However, I do want to go over one more thing, and that is custom properties for each role. So if I go ahead and hit play again, I'll show you what I mean. As you can see, my visitors, actually I should go ahead and show you. This is the group I decided to use. I'm currently in the group. My rank is visitors, which is the first role. That's why it prints out visitors. That's how we know the group role is working. If I go ahead and leave this group, you can see within 5 seconds it should remove it. So it automatically updates. So if I go ahead and join this group join back inside the group, you guys can watch me do this captcha real quick. Okay, I successfully joined the group and my role came back. So that's how you know it auto updates. If my role were to change, I cannot change my role, but if it were to change, it would auto update the same way. Now let's go ahead and go back to what I was talking about custom properties. So let's say, for example, you could do this with any property. You could change the text color. You could change the text size for each of the different roles. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and make a table that will give us different colors for different roles inside of the group. So I'll go ahead and make a table called local colors equals a new table using the curly braces, and I'll do on the left side for my keys, I'll put it to the different roles that you can be in the group. So visitors is one of them, and I'll set visitors equal to color3 dot from RGB dot, and we'll make this red. So I'll do 255 50/50, and that'll give us a red color for visitors. And then if you were to add another role color, you just add a comma and then the next key and value. So let's say there's another role in hidden developers called scripters. If someone was a scripter, they would get let's say a blue role. So let's do 50 250 or 50 255, and then you could do a comma and then another role and another color. But let's see if my visitors role changes from the default color purple to whatever this was, red. So I'm going to go ahead and go down here and actually assign that color. After I set role GUI.textLabel.text, we're going to do role GUI.textLabel.text color 3, which is the if I go into the object browser and go down to text label, you'll see that the property that I'm looking for is text color 3. Text color 3 is equal to, I'm going to go to my colors table, and then I'm going to index it with the group role. So colors, group role. So if my group role was visitors, it would index colors with visitors and fetch this color. Same thing with scripters or whatever role that you decide to include. And then in case the role isn't inside this table, let's say there's a role was added to the group but the script isn't updated yet, we haven't accounted for it yet, or maybe we, that's really the only case. If there's a role added to the group but the script isn't updated, so it doesn't have information for that role, we'll just set a default color. So what we can do is do colors group role or color3.new or from RGB, or you can do role GUI dot text label dot text color 3. So if you do that, if you set color3.new or whatever, you can set your own default color, or you can do role GUI dot text label dot text color 3, and that will make the default color whatever you made the color when you were making the GUI, which is purple for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and I should still have the visitors role, but now instead of being purple, it should be red, since we have a color assigned inside of the table, inside of the colors table, and we decided to use it. So as you can see, it is now red, and that's it. Now we have custom properties for each of the roles inside of our group. We can make another one called local sizes and come up with different sizes for each role. We could give each of them different tweens possibly. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you at that point, but hopefully this video helped you a lot, and I hope you come up with some pretty neat group roles or different things with group service or text labels and so forth. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Be sure to like, be sure to comment if you have any questions, add me on Discord. I should get back to you if I can. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.